Welcome to another edition of Mariners Forever, episode 4, I believe. I'm Dan. That's Michael. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to subscribe. Be one of the first to subscribe to the new channel. Help us grow this thing and talk some Mariners baseball. Let's just start right at the top, Michael. Mariners drop a terrible week and a bad homestand continues. One that last time we talked, we thought they had a chance to get right. They have now fallen to 32-30 on the season, and now the Astros have won 7 out of 10 as well. And so the Mariners find themselves 2.5 games back of the AL West. We're going to tackle 5 burning questions here today, but just generally, how you feeling today after the homestand? Well, homestand's not over, but after the week that was in Marinerland.
Yeah, not great, Bob. Like, it's been pretty bad baseball for the last 2 weeks. Pretty much since they went and beat the crap out of the San Diego Padres and swept them, this has not looked like the team that early on we were thinking, man, they might be right there with the Tigers and the Yankees as the elite tier in the American League. And since then, the Astros have taken it to them. We struggled to even get a game, or we lost the series to the Nationals. You could have made a case we could have swept the Twins. We also kind of should have been swept by the Twins.
Yeah.
And that ended up being a pretty big series win against a team we're probably going to be competing for a playoff spot with. And then the Orioles come to town, having barely just beat the White Sox. They fired their manager. They're looking like everyone's like fancy, sexy trade candidate because they're going to sell all their pieces off. And they come into Seattle and we blow 3 leads against them and we can't score. And then it's like, all right, fine. Maybe we just need to get out of T-Mobile Park. And then last night we let Kyle Hendricks, who is not the same Hendricks that he was in Chicago in 2016. Like, he's a shell of himself. And we let that ghost of a baseball team beat us 5-4. And I get it. Like, it's just one game, but these things are starting to compound. And a lot of it has to do with just our pitchers not pitching like they did last year and our hitting reverting back to what we all feared. Now, it does feel right now like the sky is falling. What is our record in the last few games? Was it 4-9, 4-11? Like, it's not good.
Yeah. 4-9 since we started the show. We swear it's not our fault. It's
blame Dan on that one, guys.
Look, if it continues, maybe we'll just shut the show down. But these are the numbers now in the last 30 days for the Mariners. These are Major League Baseball rankings. 25th in RBIs, 25th in runs, 27th in hits, 28th in OPS, 28th in on-base percentage, 29th in batting average. I shudder to think who's worse. I don't even want to check the numbers. That's and really what's been difficult the last couple of weeks and the most frustrating part is it's really a case of everything that could go wrong, that can go wrong, has gone wrong, right? When they score a couple of runs and they have a 6-3 lead at home, the best relief pitcher, we talked about it the last couple of weeks, Andres Munoz comes in, hasn't given up an earned run all year, gives up 3 to lose the lead. We end up losing that in extra innings. We lose in extra innings two nights in a row. We have, even though we're not scoring runs, the starting pitching was good enough that we're in games late, and now the bullpen can't hold it. Guys that previously performed aren't performing. The depth just isn't there. It's one thing after another. We can't seem to get healthy, can't get all the pieces back. But I'm not even sure that if they were all back, that would help. Like, you might get Logan Gilbert back in a few days, but are we sure that's an upgrade? He wasn't great in his 2 rehab starts. His velocity was down a few days ago. We're not sure if he's going to pitch again. His turn would be up Wednesday, I think, again in Tacoma. But Bryce Miller, in the meantime, hasn't been effective at all. They have a decision to make with him. It's getting to the point where our first question here is going to deal with this head on. Like, whereas a couple of weeks ago, we were still feeling good about our prospects and thinking, well, if we add a couple of pieces, this division's ripe for the taking. But where do you sit right now on our first question today? Buy or sell? I mean, how aggressive do you want to be trying to add pieces to a roster that even with those additional pieces might not be good enough?
Yeah, you're in this spot where I think you're still, in my opinion, I think you're still very clearly in that buy mode. I think you still should feel like you're 2 bats away from kind of plugging enough holes and covering enough of the warts of your offense. But, this does not look like the same team that we thought it was, 3-4 weeks ago where it was like, oh, this team as is might be able to hang with the Yankees and the Tigers. That is not the case right now. The Tigers and the Yankees have clearly separated themselves. And now it's the question, can we drag ourselves out of what is a bad AOS, which is a big reason why I still think we're going to be buyers, is because this is the worst. I should say last year wasn't a very good AOS either, but we're just that weird realm right now where, yeah, we lost the Angels, but the Angels are not a competitive baseball team. The Athletics have completely fallen off a cliff. I think they're 2-20 or 2, something like that. It's brutal baseball over there. The Rangers continue to struggle and just not look the same since their crazy World Series heater they went on. And yeah, the Astros have a 2.5 game lead on us, but like we've played them, it doesn't feel like they're, uncatchable. They're a team that they're struggling with their health as well. And so you're in this division where it's going to keep you in it no matter what. And in baseball, division races mean so much because you win that division, you automatically get into that home series and home, field advantage and whatever that means in baseball. I don't know, but it's enough to keep you hooked in. And I think we've seen enough from this Mariners team from the good side. That's like, okay, we can see what the ceiling looks like. And that is a really good baseball team that's going to win 6, 7, 8 series in a row against good baseball teams. It's going to go into San Diego and beat the shit out of the San Diego Padres, who I would say is a World Series contender in my opinion when they're rolling.
Yeah.
We've all seen kind of the floor right now, which is we can barely beat the Nationals. We can't beat the Orioles, who are desperate. Like the Halos beat us, and like it feels really icky right now. It does not feel good. It is also we're ending the first week of June. So there's still a long ways to go. And so I think the next 40 games will kind of tell us where we're at as a team, which will lead right into the deadline. But as currently constructed, you're not going to survive the next 4 months of baseball. You very clearly have to go make some moves. The question is, how long can you wait? Because this is not July 7th. This is June 7th. And so you either have to pony up a little bit more and be more aggressive with the teams that don't know if they're a seller yet and give them an offer they can't refuse, or you have to pull internal levers, or you just got to hope it turns around.
I mean, that's the problem with teams that are where the Mariners are in today's iteration of Major League Baseball, because the expanded playoffs, everyone still feels like they're a good week away from being in it. And so early season trades are just so much harder to execute than they ever have been before. Now, the advantage the Mariners have, obviously, they have a loaded farm system. And as we've alluded to, their top prospects across the board are all performing. Like they have assets that they could move. But as you touched on, if you're going to acquire someone in early June, you're going to have to convince someone to part with them this early in the season, which means you're going to have to overpay and be the aggressor. And I don't know that this roster, even if you squint your eyes and wish really hard for how good it could be if everything went right, I don't know if it's good enough that I want to be that aggressive in adding to it yet. I just don't feel like 1 or 2 players is going to put them over the top. And heaven forbid, Cal Raleigh should go in a slump. Like the only reason that we've even won 3 or 4 games in the last 11 is because he's producing. And, he's had a phenomenal homestand and it hasn't really helped much. Julio's been okay, but we were hoping for a spark out of Cole Young. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in depth. He's won for his first 19. That's not to be unexpected. Of course, people are overreacting. They're freaking out, but we're talking about our number 8 hitter. It's not like the guy he replaced was doing much better.
And also, there's nobody to sell. This is not a roster. We've talked about this from our first episode till now.
There's one possibility, but not now. If you get into the deadline, if you're 8 games out and the season's over, you're shopping Andres Munoz. You have to, because he could bring you a haul and relievers can be replaced. But yeah, you're right. We could sell from our minor leagues and our prospect system. It's just how much are you willing to give up this early in the season for someone that a team is willing to give up this early in the season? So what does that tell you?
And when you're in those cold slumps, what gets you out of cold slumps for major league teams is your star players performing and carrying you for a day or two, just until you can get the rest of the team to kind of pick up whatever they're struggling with. And right now, we we're pitching's pretty good. Obviously, we're excited to get Logan Gilbert back. We kind of talked about it a little bit. There's clearly something still ailing Bryce Miller. Kirby, we did see, like, that is a positive this week. We did see George Kirby pitch very well against the Baltimore Orioles. They've had a season from hell, but that's still a really dangerous offense, and he looked closer to himself, and that's big going forward.
Brian Woo's been good. Luis Castillo's been good.
Woo was good. Just, the back-to-back homers really doomed us when we can't score. But offensively, we're talking about Cal Raleigh as the second best player in the American League, nipping at Aaron Judge's heels for the MVP thing. But, like, yeah, Julio's been okay, but, he hasn't been what we kind of need to help us. Instead of going, 4-9, that's more of maybe it's 6-7. And now you're only a half game back and stuff like that. Those are the little things while the rest of the company kind of gets it together. And like you said, heaven forbid that Cal Raleigh goes in a slump, because we're not getting enough. Our offense, we have 2, maybe 3 guys that when they're hot as stars, they can carry the load. We've seen that before with Julio. We've seen it with JP Crawford even. But, like, if they're not up to that all-star level that we know they can get to, it makes things very hard for this team to stay afloat when 5 through 9 is kind of, like you said, it's the 25th to 28th best offense in baseball. That's not sustainable.
Yeah, there's no length to the lineup. You're just you're hoping that the top of the lineup can get something done every time they come around. It really, the more time that goes on with this lineup, the more that it really makes Jerry DiPoto's comments from a month ago about how, this is the best lineup they've had. It just makes it look more ridiculous by the day. Some other potential good news this week. It sounds like Luke Raley is feeling really good. He's been able to swing with full effort. That's ahead of schedule. It sounds like he's going to go out on a rehab assignment this week. Not that he's a superstar or a savior in any way, shape, or form.
It's a massive addition.
It would certainly help, especially from the left side, help that lineup and lengthen that, especially with the production that they've been getting or not been getting at first base. So we both agree that we still would like to buy if the opportunity is there, even though the market might not cooperate with the Mariners timeline or with what they want to do. And so we've already touched on this a little bit, but can they buy before it's too late? Like if no one's willing to sell this early, you're left combing through DFAs, and waiver wires, every time somebody, the Reds just designated a 30-plus-year-old journeyman catcher today, but he was hitting 410 in a limited sample size. Everybody wants to sign him. He's going to save the day. What can they possibly do at this juncture of the season to add some spark to this lineup or the bullpen?
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned it, you're either looking through the garbage bin, which is, one man's trash is another man's treasure, and Jerry has found that before. You're the odds of finding the next Victor Robles is, as we've realized with Tavares, it's not apples to apples. It's very different. And Tavares has proven his worth in a few areas, mostly defensively and stuff. But also, once Raley comes, there's that question: does Raley play first base? Does he go in the outfield? How healthy is he going to be? But by the deadline, there's a real strong chance Tavares is no longer on this major league roster unless he turns it on offensively, and he has never shown the ability to do that. You're kind of, when you're looking at these trades, you're either looking at a cash-strapped team. You're looking at the dog shit teams like the Rockies, the Marlins, the White Sox. Like, do you want to go hunting for players there?
The Rockies never give up, though. They just never trade their players. They don't. I know they don't understand the value of having an asset. They just.
No, their banner this year is having more wins in a 3-day period than Scotty Scheffler did. Did you see that tweet they posted after? That's
when you're grasping at straws, you gotta.
I know it's tough there, but yeah, they're just a weird franchise, and you're kind of looking at that, like the teams that clearly know now, and they're like, sure, yeah, just give us $1.25 on the dollar, and we'll give you that player. I don't see a player on that roster that I want. Like, there's nobody that makes sense on those right now. So you kind of have to look internally, like, why is Polanco still hitting second? Which I know we'll talk about him later, but like, you can't have him hitting there. You have to move the lineup around, and Dan's been pretty steadfast. He is, and we've talked about him I think in a very positive way on our show so far. But yeah, that lineup has, in my opinion, gone very stale, and I would love to see some changes. And we can talk about what those could be. I don't think I have anything specifically other than I would like to see someone else hitting second and maybe slide everybody up. When you have 3 guys in your lineup that are decent hitters and everyone else is kind of not good, let's give them more at bats is kind of my opinion. But that's just me.
That's been a talking point this week. Raleigh hitting fourth too much. Put your best hitter in the top 3 spots so he gets another at bat. That would have come into play last night. Like there's examples of that, but it also just who's hitting fourth then? Like that's how bad this lineup is. If you put Julio 2, Raleigh 3, and JP has had a good homestand, he's getting on base again. That's great. Then what? Maybe you scratch out a couple of runs, but who's hitting fourth for you? Rowdy Tellez? I mean, it gets bad quick. This is what we talked about all off season, though. It's like, sometimes fans get so focused on just the 9, right? And just the 3 bullpen. We got 3 bullpen guys. We're fine. I remember hearing a lot of this in the preseason. We got Brash is coming back. We got Munoz, and Snyder was pretty good at the end of last year. We're fine. I was beating the drum the whole offseason. You got to add to that bullpen. It's not enough. You got to add a bat.
And you were absolutely right.
Because you have to have that kind of depth. Like if one guy falters, and bullpen arms from year to year are very volatile, right? We've seen that. We're seeing it this year. Hitters too. There just isn't the depth, even in the starting rotation, which has been okay in picking up the slack when guys have gone down. That hasn't been the problem. But it's just there's no depth, and so you lose a guy and you're down to what we have. It leads to the next question, which is let's get specific then. Who are some players that may be available that wouldn't, that the Mariners could afford in asset capital and financially, that would make sense, that might be pried away from the teams they're currently on?
Yeah, I think the 2 names that have come to our mind are 2 names that we've heard actually this week from a lot of people that we know and trust, including Jeff Passan on Brock and Salk. He talked about it as well. But the 2 guys that I have on my list is a reunion with Eugenio Suarez, Gino. A lot of good memories with him in Seattle, part of that playoff team in 2022. Having a good year with the Arizona Diamondbacks, hitting in that spacious ballpark. Strikeouts are actually a little bit down. His baseball savant page still shows he is prone to his strikeouts. He is going to whiff, but when he makes contact right now, that ball is going very, very far. His defense has definitely slipped since his time in Seattle. But also I wouldn't say he's so far away from what we've seen from Ben Williamson that it's not worth the bat.
Right.
Which Ben has been fine, but part of his allure was that we were getting an automatic Gold Glove third baseman, which we've talked a little bit. I haven't seen that so far with him, and I can only see so many opposite field, 80-mile-per-hour singles from Ben and stuff. And I think he's kind of showing who he is, which is fine. But that's another guy I'd love to bring back. He's on the last year of his contract. So his, if you get him now or at the deadline, his contract's, not going to be back-breaking. I don't know what that would be, split in half. And then the next guy I have is the right-handed hitter for the Baltimore Orioles, Ryan O'Hearn. We just saw him in Baltimore. He's having a fantastic year. He's due for a pretty nice payday from someone in the offseason because he's going to be a free agent. I think this team, knowing you're going to get Luke Raley back on the left side, we need some right-handed hitting. We need some power. If this team really is going to be about, you're hoping 4 or 5 guys get hot, I'd like to get 2 more consistent bats that can put the ball. They're not T-Mobile, energy strength sapped. Like they can hit through T-Mobile Park. Gino has proven that for 2 seasons with us. I think Ryan O'Hearn can do that. So I think those are 2 guys that are attainable. They're not going to break the farm. You're not giving up, I would say, even your top 7 prospects for them. For a rental, I would be stunned to see anything close to that. But like you talked about, it takes 2 to tango. And last week, the Mariners were in first place. The Diamondbacks were in deep trouble. It looked like they were about to lose their ace, which they did. And the Orioles fired their manager and looked like one of the worst teams in the American League. And what happens a week later? Yeah. They sweep the Braves, the Diamondbacks do, and they're holding on to try and prove they can stay in it. And the Baltimore Orioles came into your ballpark and kicked the shit out of you. And so it just it doesn't really help the matter. You could have swept the Orioles and really put the pressure on them to be like, all right, we should start unloading now because they are a cheap franchise. historically. And so those are the two I'm looking at. Again, it's a long way to July 27th, I believe is the deadline, or 28th. But those are the two names where they're probably 6 or 7 hitters on ALCS teams. And that's what we're trying to get to. For us, they're probably batting 4th and 5th. So it's not exactly a perfect fit. But you put Eugenio Suarez and Ryan O'Hearn on this lineup with a healthy Luke Raley, Cal Raleigh, JP, Julio Rodriguez, and you get maybe Victor Robles back in September, and he's something. All of a sudden, that lineup looks a lot better, right? That looks like an AL West winning lineup, in my opinion.
Yeah, and both make a lot of sense. Both, I think, could be acquired, as you say, without giving up top 10 prospects. O'Hearn being on the, an expiring contract, about to turn 32, really only in his career became a full-time player last year. He's hitting 326, but his career batting average is 252. But he's a guy that would fit that Mariner mold. Like he sees a lot of pitches. He works walks right now. This year so far, the last 2 years combined, 70 walks to 104 strikeouts. That's really impressive. That's a number that has to have some appeal to the Mariners. His OPS this year is 931. And then Gino hitting 232. He hit 234 in his 2 seasons in Seattle. But he's slugging higher right now at the moment. He's got those 16 home runs. I'm with you. But my thing is this. If this team and organization is serious about capitalizing on all the young pitching talent they have, especially if Gilbert can come back and look anything like himself, is you can't just add one of these guys and call it good. I mean, that's what I feel like would be the Mariner way, right?
Yes.
Well, we'll get, hey, we brought Gino back. Cool. That's going to appease the fans. We can hang our hat on Raley coming back. We'll talk that up. And then I think if you added them both, maybe now you have a chance, right? Because you have the DH spot open with Polanco probably needing to be sent to the injured reserve list. We'll talk about him in a second. You could play Raley in the outfield and at first base. O'Hearn could play first base and DH, right? They're both left-handed hitters, but we face a bunch of righties in this division. And then you add Suarez from the right side. Yeah, as you said, even if his defense isn't what it once was, it's adequate. It's fine, right?
Yes. Yes.
And Adam Jude, I thought this was interesting. He was on local radio recently, and he was asked, and he said, I have checked around. He covers the Mariners for the Seattle Times. I've checked around, and not only have they inquired or I can't remember his wording now, but basically, are they open to the idea and have considered the possibility, but they would love to have him back. There weren't any burned bridges there. I don't think Suarez would mind, not that he would have any control. He doesn't have a no trade contract. But I would submit that if you're serious about really doing something, acquire both those players or 2 just like them, and they would make all the sense in the world. You wouldn't have to give up a bunch, but I don't know if it would be so against Jerry's MO to not acquire players with club control, to get 2 players, 2 rentals, basically. I don't know if that's his MO. And you got to get a bullpen arm in there somewhere too, but they're always available, especially the closer you get to the deadline. And there might be some things they could do. Okay. So let's talk about some other possibilities. We've mentioned this one, so let's move this one up the list a little bit. What do you do about Jorge Polanco? Now, I saw some stats the other day about how good the Mariners were in April and as a team, and then how bad they were in May. And they asked the question, like, what's going wrong? Is this Dan Wilson? Is this the hitting staff? And I took one look at those stats. I said, it's one player. It's Jorge Polanco. He was red hot. He's one of the hottest hitters in the league in Major League Baseball the first month of the season. Mm-hmm. And then he hurts his side or whatever. Maybe he re-aggravated the knee injury. We don't know. They're not saying. And he's been one of the worst hitters in the league over the last month. They continue to run him out there. And as you said, hit him second. Like, if he's actually healthy and he's just struggling now to get his timing back, fine. You cannot hit him at the top of the lineup. If he's not healthy, they have to figure out something. They have to get him off this roster for a while and let him get better.
Yeah, he just doesn't look healthy. He didn't look healthy last year, and he looks like he did last year. And he is actually, if I saw correctly, someone said he's actually has worse stats in the last month than he had anything that was last year. And last year was like within the realm of Colton Wong bad. Like it was pretty bad. And I think we were all stunned to see him come back to Seattle. And after the first month, people were like, man, we can get him re-signed. Obviously, he likes being in Seattle. Things are looking great. And it looks to me like someone that just at this point in his career, you're not going to get him. You just can't rely on him health wise, and whatever is ailing him, you don't hit that well, right? And we all know April in Seattle is a really tough time to hit, and that dude was hitting bombs. He was smacking the ball over the field. Second best hitter in baseball behind Aaron Judge in April, and now he just looks like a shell of himself. And so you have to decide how much longer you're going to keep running this out here. And again, I have respect for Dan Wilson, but I don't understand. And you see it every day around 5:00 when the lineups get posted on social media. A lot of people you and I, enjoy and respect and talk baseball with, they're just trashing the Mariners and Dan for continuing to roll him out there second. And like, yeah, I'm probably not going to be as that negative and vocal about it, but it is hard to watch because it looks like we're dragging someone out that looks like he's got 100 more at bats left in his major league career. And that should not be the case with Polanco. He needs to get healthy. And if that means he needs to go on the 60-day IL and that probably costs him the season, like maybe you can get him back at the end of the year and you get him healthy and then you can get him hot for a month. He just might be that guy that just needs that. That's who he's going to be from now on. And you put him on a team like Tampa Bay, you put him on a team like the Yankees or the Dodgers, maybe they can handle that with their lineup and their roster. The Mariners can't. They need someone that can come out and produce on a consistent basis. And he is a big reason why the Mariners are where they are now, which is only couple games behind the Astros after their hot start, is because he carried us to that point. And, he walked so that Cal Raleigh could run, right?
Yeah.
And now I feel like at this point where you have to make a decision in the next 2 weeks. But in the next 2 weeks, let's stop kidding ourselves. He's not the two-hitter. Get him out of that spot. Get him on the bench or put him at the bottom of the lineup, and let's see if he can I just want to see some type of lineup adjustment.
Yeah, it's the old definition of insanity, right? You keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. They have to try something different, and that leads me to kind of our next question: is what if the trade market is going to take a minute to develop? Then what can he do in the meantime, right? And the first answer is internally: is there anyone on your bench that can help? We can have a conversation about should Dylan Moore be playing. I have been surprised at times where he's sat. In lieu of some other guys, Mastroboni and Solano and even Rivas when he was up. There was a stretch of 5 or 6 straight days where Moore didn't play, even though he'd been hitting well. I really couldn't understand that.
And Moore's had a great year so far.
Yeah, but I think we're splitting hairs there. We've seen at times in his career where he's been given an opportunity to play more regularly and he doesn't hit as well. Like I think he's better in small sample sizes. But you have a couple of guys down in Tacoma. I don't understand what Dom Canzone has done to get to fall out of the Mariners' good graces. I think when they acquired him, they were really high on him. I made some comps I thought he was a similar profile to Mitch Haniger when they acquired him from the Diamondbacks and what he'd done in the minor leagues. I thought his batted ball data was similar. We've seen the power, and he's just crushing it in Tacoma. It seems like he's made some improvements in his approach. He's not striking out quite as much. He's walking more, getting on base. He's hitting close to 300. I mean, he's been a productive player down there, and he's a guy who's been in the major leagues. He's seen it, done it, seen some of the pitching. I don't understand why they don't give that a shot. And then we can have the Harry Ford conversation. Yeah. Continuing to hit well. His numbers overall now, he's gotten to the point he's been so hot the last 6 weeks. Now he's hitting 321 on the season, a 912 OPS, 6 home runs, 34 walks to 34 strikeouts. Jerry Dipoto did speak about him last week, said it's the best we've ever seen Harry Ford's swing, like he's locked in, says he's a catcher through and through. We haven't considered moving him to another position, says there's going to be opportunities for him to be called up. We're not thinking about trading him. Well, when is too late? At what point do you pull the trigger there? He could help you spell Cal a couple days a week behind the plate, but he could DH. The DH spot's giving you nothing right now. Or do you look at this and you say, okay, we sat here a week ago. talking about maybe Cole Young being able to add some juice to the lineup. In his debut, he gets a hit. He gets the fielder's choice walk-off in the 10th. Everyone's feeling good. He's 0 for 19 since then. Does that give you pause when thinking about maybe Harry Ford being able to add something to this lineup right now?
No, I personally don't, because it is a massive adjustment. It's there's you can make a case there's more of an adjustment going from AAA, which is all the pitchers that are quadruple A pitchers. They're just kind of at that point compared to moving up to pros, compared to double A in the type of stuff that you see in double A up to the pros. And Cole Young was on an amazing heater, and it has not looked great so far. But I think you are 2 weeks away from even having that conversation. Right now is him adjusting. I believe in him. Hopefully, we see something, a breakthrough here in the next game or two. But it's very, very early, right? Like this isn't the same type of prospect that Jackson Holiday was, who started 0 for 8, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, what's wrong?" And it just compounded with him, and he ended up having to go back down. And Harry's a different player. They're different people. They're different players and stuff. And everyone reacts to that change differently. And so I'm not concerned about Cole Young. I would like to see 2 more weeks of this. I don't want to see this, but let's watch 2 more weeks and we'll find out. For me, I agree with you. Dom Canzone and Harry Ford, I would like to see them called up. And I would like to see the Mariners. They already ate Mitch Haniger's money. At some point, I think we just need to, if you want to be the franchise that you want to be and not be compared to the lowly franchises, the way that a lot of this fan base does feel about our ownership financially and stuff, I think you have to have that conversation about eating Mitch Garver's money and saying, hey, it just didn't work out. I would love to see Harry Ford come up and Dom Canzone come up. I'd love to see Jorge Polanco. He may say I'm healthy, and I think you just got to put him on the IL, and you got to just figure, hey, we just need to get you healthy, get you right, come back when we're ready, and let's see, what does that look like, a rotation at the DH spot between Harry Ford and Dom Canzone. Dom can also play in the outfield. Harry Ford, like you said, can catch 2 days a week. All of a sudden, your DH spot starts to look like a platoon of Harry Ford and Dom Canzone. Could that be bad? Yes. Could it be as bad as what we're seeing from Jorge Polanco right now? Yeah, but it's going to be tough to be worse than that. And I'd love to see the power that Canzone brings. Harry Ford he's seen the ball so well. I thought that was a really good article said this week about him, whereas he understands his role and who he is. They talked about him playing in the outfield last year and how it just wasn't a fit.
Right.
Doesn't feel like that's going to be a thing. But again, you give him 2 days catching, you let him DH against lefties, and you just bring him in. And at this point, everyone's saying, oh, well, he's not going to get the exposure and the seasoning that he needs to get if he's on the bench all the time on the big leagues. I would counter, and I would say I would actually like to see him up spending every single day with Cal Raleigh and Dan Wilson. If he really is a catcher, which, let's be honest, we're not bringing him up to catch. We're bringing him up because his bat is hot. It looks like he finally looks like the first-round pick that we thought he was when we took him. I want to see him in the lineup because I just think he brings more than what's left of Jorge Polanco's body right now and what we're getting from our bench. And like you said, it keeps Dylan Moore in that utility role where he is at his best. And so that's what I'd love to see. Let's see what Canzone's got right now. If you're worried about the defense, which is the only reasonable thing I can think of, well, then bring in Tavares later in the innings, later in the game for a defensive substitution. I don't know what you think about it, but it doesn't ruin your roster. It doesn't ruin your lineup. It doesn't cause too many issues. I would like to see those young guys get a shot.
Yeah, it's the ultimate fourth outfielder role. It's something we've all throughout Mariner lore. We always had that. People don't remember this, but Raul Ibanez used to be that guy.
Yeah.
When he was a young major leaguer, when he came up with the Mariners, he couldn't hit, but he had a hose. And so they would put him in right field late in games. And then it was when he left, he spent some time in Kansas City, ironically, with Kevin Seitzer, who is now the Mariners hitting coach. And he kind of turned him around. It completely changed his career and he became a power hitter. But that would be Tavares' role. But to not try something, because sometimes I feel like this mindset is overly simplistic, but right now I think it's the right outlook. You cannot do worse than running Mastroboni and Solano and Polanco out there every day and Garver. You can't. I've given up on any hope that Mitch Garver's going to find whatever it was that made him a very productive major league hitter for his entire career up until he became a Mariner. And we've seen that affliction curse many other players in their history. And yeah, I agree with you on Cole Young. Unless they sense that he's starting to mentally struggle and dig himself into a hole, as long as his approach is good, like he's going to figure it out. The swing is too sound. The bat speed's too good. Like he may not find the power right away, but I think the contact will get better. I get it. I get the mindset. I understand how fans could look at what's happening with him and all the hype leading up to it, the first round pick and everything else, and it's hard not to think about Dustin Ackley.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And like, I'm not trying to sound like the old guys in that room with Brad Pitt and Moneyball. He's got a good look, he's got a good jawline and stuff like that. But
it's got an ugly girlfriend.
Yeah, right. Gosh, man, what a great movie! But
that's my favorite line in that movie.
It's such a great movie. But then it bugs me so much. They just ignore. They had the best rotation in baseball. They had the Cy Young winner, and they had the MVP at shortstop and Miguel Tejada.
And they didn't even mention him. Yeah, it's Tim Hudson. You didn't even know he was on the team. We'll do a baseball movie episode.
Yeah, but with Cole Young, I feel like his approach is sound right now. Like he doesn't look like he's overwhelmed, in my opinion. They're hitting him
at 8th too. It's not like what they did with when they brought Ackley up. I think they had him hitting leadoff. When they brought Kelenic up, they had him hitting leadoff. They brought him up and immediately installed him with the pressure of, man, we need you to be good. Yeah, they didn't do that with Cole Young. They're not going to do that with Cole Young. We were hoping for a spark from him, but you're hitting him in the 8th hole. Leave him there. He's playing a good second base. He's really solid there.
I just think he's going to work out. Is he going to be great? I don't know, but I think it's going to be fine. It's going to be better than what we've had at second base. He just has to adjust. And our next few games are against some pretty lowly teams, and we're a pretty lowly team right now. But those are great opportunities for him to get hot against some bad pitching.
I want to ask you this now. You've been watching. Let me get rid of this banner here. Let's get rid of this bad news. College baseball playoffs, right? College World Series, and a bunch of guys. As we mentioned last week, you talked about some of your favorite prospects for that number 3 pick for the Mariners. They're almost all those guys except for Jackson Holiday, of course, because he's still in high school. Or Ethan Holiday, that I get all my holidays mixed up. All the college arms, and then Arquette and some of those guys, they're all playing in the playoffs and they're all playing well. What have been your impressions? Who stood out the most out of those guys that you like?
Yeah, we're in the super regionals now, and this is honestly one of the more enjoyable college baseball's playoffs that we've had in a while, because like you talked about, I would say 6 of the top 8 picks in this draft are playing, and they're like the stars on their teams right now, and they're all alive. We saw a lot of mocks last week for Cade Anderson, the LSU ace lefty, absolutely looked dominant. 7 innings, 11 strikeouts, just such a tight release. Everything looks so smooth. He definitely looks a little skinny, so looks like the kind of guy that when we see him again in a year or two, he's going to have 10 to 15 pounds put on him. But I just see a very smooth 94 to 95 right now. That's going to grow to 96, 97. He's rising up the boards. I think even someone the other day had him going number 1 overall. A hot College World Series run has proven for these college guys to move them into top picks overall. We've seen that before. His SEC rival, Liam Doyle, was a little popular on SportsCenter because
I think he's my favorite now.
He laid down the smack against at Wake Forest, and he backed it up. He sat them down. He was fantastic as well. Those 2 guys, they're the 2, along with Jamie Arnold from Florida State, who I'm going to talk about in a second. It's 3 number 1 overall pick quality lefties that bring the heat in. And that is a really rare thing to see, that many number 1 overall picks as a left-handed pitcher. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch, because you also have fantastic hitters. We talked about Ethan Holiday. Speaking of Jamie Arnold, he plays tonight in a do-or-die game in Corvallis for Florida State, who blew a 4-1 lead in the 9th to Oregon State. Oregon State, kind of a little backstory. Obviously, as you know, as a Cougars fan, they don't have a conference, so they're kind of playing independent baseball right now in their Pac-12. And a lot of people gave them a lot of shit because they had a great season, but they're kind of saying, well, you picked your schedule, you didn't really play anybody, and they got a top 8 overall seed. And right now they're 1 win away from going to Omaha. And a big part of that is because of their shortstop, Arquette. We talked about him in last week's episode. All he's done this week is smack doubles, go 2 for 4, 2 for 4, 2 for 4. They beat the living crap out of USC twice to get to the Super Regionals. And then he, in the 11th inning last night, smacked a leadoff double that ended up being the go-ahead score. I cannot tell you how impressed I've been with Arquette. He looks massive, 6'5". The body, not the same player, so please don't, say that I'm saying this. He just looks a lot like A-Rod, like too big to be a shortstop. The swing is so smooth from the right-hand side. I got to tell you, he's really growing on me. I definitely think that if you put a gun to my head and said I had to pick right now, I'd probably want Arquette at number 3. But I'm going to see Jamie Arnold tonight, who looks like Chris Sale. Cade Anderson, Liam Doyle, all those guys look good. If Seattle can get any of those 4, Arquette or any of those 3 starters, that's going to be a massive win. And all 3 of these guys are going tonight, as far as I know. If Cade and Liam aren't going tonight, they're going tomorrow because they start their 3-game series tonight. But tonight in Corvallis, Jamie Arnold going against Arquette. That should be quite the battle.
So you'll be happy with this. Jonathan Mayo came out with his latest mock, and we shared this the other day. I think it's what you referenced, but this would make you happy. So he's got Cade. This is Cade Anderson going number 1 overall. This is the first mock I've seen that looks like this at all. And Mayo's pretty tied in. He's been doing this for a long time. He and Jim Callis both, like, once we get to this point in the process, they start basing these mocks on things that they're also hearing about who organizations like. And then you have Liam Doyle going 2nd overall to the Angels. The Angels have been in on college pitching. It seems like they're dead set on that. They need pitching in their system. That leaves, according to Mayo here, Arquette to go 3rd to your Seattle Mariners, with Ethan Holiday slipping all the way down to the Rockies at number 4. So I mean, it sounds like you'd be happy with that scenario.
Yeah, I would. I think if Ethan doesn't go number 1, and because I think everyone, like you said, in the industry knows the Angels are going to go pitcher number 2. And so if the Nationals go pitcher instead of Holiday, the Mariners are going to have this wild decision of, do we take the best college hitter who plays short and is probably going to have to move to 3rd at some point in his career, or do you take the best high school prospect in baseball who is a power hitting 3rd baseman? They're both on different planes of when they're going to arrive in Seattle. One has the local ties. One has this national brand because of his last name and stuff. It's a fascinating decision where I assume they would go Arquette, but man, that's really tough to pass on Holiday. I also would assume that Arquette's going to be a lot cheaper than Holiday would. But if they do that, well, then Colorado, just an absolute dumpster of a franchise, but they might be able to get Ethan Holiday to come to Colorado, which, gosh, they definitely need that. But we're talking about, do you take Ethan Holiday or Arquette or Jamie Arnold? Like, it's such a good problem to have. Like we've talked about this, getting that number 3 pick just changes so much about the direction of this franchise. You just got to choose right. And I think with the talent that's in that spot in this draft class, they have a good chance of doing so. But like you said, Cade Anderson, man, he's rising up. And I think 1 or 2 good starts in the College World Series, I think he might lock up that number 1 spot with the Nationals.
So the Mariners in LA, they dropped the first one of the Angels yesterday, 5-4. Playing tonight, we've got Luis Castillo going for the Mariners. So at the Angels, this is the week ahead. Angels, then at the Diamondbacks, give them a chance. Maybe Justin and Jerry will make the trip, hang out in Arizona. Maybe have a little chat with the Diamondbacks front office about Eugenio Suarez before coming home to face the Cleveland Indians and the Boston Red Sox at home. Do you see any hope on the horizon? Like, because to your point, last week we sat here and said chance to get right. You've got Minnesota coming in. They'd been hot before they came in. So that wasn't, but we took 2 out of 3 from them. And then Baltimore, we expected to be able to make some hay. We get swept. The Angels have been terrible, but they beat us game one. And the Diamondbacks, as you've said, won 3 in a row. So when are we going to win again?
We are playing bad baseball. We do not look like a good baseball team. We are losing a lot of one-run games. This has been a little bit of a doom and gloom episode. I think we can both agree on that. But at the same time, if a little bit can get right, if a Julio heater shows up, these one-run losses maybe turn into one-run wins.
Julio's been okay. It's just that I think the perception that people have, those that look negatively upon him or want to say that he's not a superstar, and we can have that conversation at some point, it's that he just hasn't been coming through in big moments. Like the numbers across the board, he's had the best April and May of his career. Yeah. And it looks his approach is better. I think he's seeing pitches better. It's not always perfect. It's not going to be. He's an aggressive hitter. You don't want to wean that out of him. And at times that's going to get him in trouble. It's just that he's not coming through in the clutch. And I think that just colors everything, that people think about him. Yeah.
And like you said, like we just need a little bit more, and maybe you can turn around and win this series against the Angels. And then, like we talked about, if you want Eugenio Suarez, then go into Arizona and kick the crap out of them, sweep them, and push the Diamondbacks to 7 or 8 back in the wild card. Because that division's pretty much over the way that the Dodgers and Padres are built. Like, it's just going to be really tough with no Corbin Burns now. That's a team that's probably going to be cash strapped at the deadline anyways. It's hard to see the Diamondbacks holding on. And then Boston they're in the similar boat as us. A lot of expectations, hot start. They've fallen off a cliff, and their best player is out. He's hurt. This is a chance. And then with the Guardians is a team that you're literally going to be battling for a wild card spot. Yeah. Maybe the Tigers relent, but right now I think you're definitely going to be battling with the Twins, the Royals, and the Guardians for a wild card spot if you can't keep up with the Astros. And so those are series you have to win. And so it's almost like a necessity. You have to turn it around, and hopefully you can start by beating up an Angels team that for some reason, something changed, midway through the season last year. I think we swept the Angels, and then after that, they just kicked the crap out of us for the rest of the year. Yeah. And we have just had a real hard time of beating the Angels lately, and credit to Ron Washington for getting those guys to be stingy and not relenting, but you have to win your division games against the bad teams. Like, we started off so well against our division, and then the Astros kind of, got back at us, and now we can't let the Angels continue to do the same thing. You got to take care of this series right now. You got to win the next 2 games.
Yeah, and I guess you got to think as positive as you can, and it's because the opportunity is going to be there because the rest of the division is such a mess, and really the American League as a whole, for the most part, is a mess, and so you are going to stay in it. You are going to have opportunities. You just have to hope you can stay afloat long enough until the trade market does perk up a little bit, and some teams might be willing to part with some players that could help us. Let me ask you this one final question: what do you do about Bryce Miller? Like, he's clearly not himself. He has said, they have said, they've confirmed it. There's a bone spur in there. He's given up, I think, 5 runs in both of his starts coming back off the injured list. What do you do with him? Do you just get the surgery now and just forfeit the rest of the season, get him healthy so he comes back to spring training 100%? We can get the Bryce Miller that we expect Bryce Miller to be. Or when Logan Gilbert comes back, maybe a shift to the bullpen and you see what you can get from him there. I just don't know how that helps if you're hurt.
Yeah. So if you go off the rotation, assuming off days, nothing changes, you're going to see him probably against the Diamondbacks in the final game of that series. And then you would see him against the Boston Red Sox. So Arizona, and then the home game against Boston, against some lineups that have some talent, but definitely haven't been, hitting to the level that we'd expect of those 2 teams. I think you give him 2 more starts. That's my personal opinion. I give him 2 more starts. And if he is not healthy, then yes, I would shut him down. I would do the surgery, get whatever's going on in that elbow out. I would forfeit the season, because at that point you're heading into the middle of June. And I think between Hancock and Logan Evans, I think you can run out there and run with those 2 guys in Bryce Miller's spot, because you know what you have with Wu, You, at this point, would have Logan Gilbert probably on his second or third start, getting close to that. Hopefully at that point, probably second start.
Yeah.
Kirby is probably fully going at this point, knock on wood, still healthy and stuff. And so I think that we go back to, this is why you don't trade a Logan Evans yet or Emerson Hancock. This is why you have it's nice to have 6.5, maybe 7 truly MLB ready starting pitchers, because Logan Evans and Emerson Hancock would be one of the best number 5 starters in baseball. And you get Bryce healthy, you get into that winter. It sucks to not have him, like you and I have talked about and dreamed about. Can you imagine this guy coming out of the bullpen in a playoff series? It would be awesome. Yeah. And maybe you can do something there, but I just assume let's get him right. He's got so much left for his future here in Seattle. Or let's not let things get worse, and in case his value is still high enough in the winter to make a bigger deal if you decide to do that, because I think it's been very clear he's been a part of talks. They just haven't felt comfortable to make the deal yet, and maybe that deal comes around. And I don't think a surgery would necessarily eliminate that deal from happening.
Not for a bone spur.
If he keeps tanking, I don't say tanking is the wrong word, but if he keeps looking not like Bryce Miller, then that's not going to help you. And so I just would rather, let's just get him healthy. Let's see what he looks like in 2026, because it's just been weird since the beginning and it hasn't looked right at all. I think I even messaged you early on. I was like, there's something not right. And then he would go 4 straight innings of no hit ball and look great, but he never could consistently put 6-7 innings together.
Yeah, I'm with you to a point. I would give him one more start, but I would give Logan Gilbert one more rehab start also, just to make sure
that makes sense.
Good. And I'm not really worried about Gilbert. There was a lot made out of the fact that in the 3rd inning the other night his velocity was down. But the best news was he spoke to the media the next day, and he said the best thing was he woke up the next day and he felt great. He said normal arm soreness, but not the elbow. Like, that felt great. So he didn't even know about the velocity issue. You know, he may have just been dialing it back a little bit, right?
Right. Yeah.
But I would do the one more start, and then I'm with you. Get that bone spur taken out. If it was a tendon thing or a flexor bundle or one of the maybe a little bit bigger issue, but I'm with you. Just get it done. If he can't bounce back, get it done, because you have the depth. That is one position that you can cover. And yeah, then you get to the offseason and he could very well be a guy that's in play for a bigger move. If you do indeed get through the season and Emerson Hancock proves that he can stay healthy and Logan Evans continues to develop and all those things you talked about. So, all right. Well, yeah, that was a tough one. It was going to be hard. It was going to be hard to put a lipstick on the pig this week, as they say. But next week we will do our best as we get closer to the All-Star game, closer to the break, closer to the draft, all of those things. That'll be some fun stuff to talk about. All right, I'm going to watch some college baseball tonight, man. You've got me pumped up. Join us again next week. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. Here, let me put my there we go. Mariners, the number 4 ever. Follow Michael as well. If you're Seahawk fans, you can catch me over on Seahawks Forever. But focus on this channel for now. Let's hit the subscribe button if you would. Help us get to 1,000 subscriptions. That is the first big milestone in new YouTube channels. Michael, have a great week, buddy.
You too. Go Mariners.
We'll see you next week. Forever and always. Go M's.